Coloring in TV Paint 11, super easy when you know which tools to use for and how to use them. I worked in TV Paint 10, it was a pain that I actually thought it's easier to export every single image, put it into Photoshop, color it there, export it back, and then work out the animation in TV Paint again. TV Paint 11 improved a lot in that regard. So, 3 tools, one exclusive to the professional version. I'm gonna show all 3, so that's why I have a demo here, because I don't have professional. So, I made a very, basic animation, just a ball moving. Tool 1, Paint Bucket. I personally have a love-hate relationship with Paint Bucket tools usually, because you click, you think, yep, it's filled. But then you look closer and you see these horrible non-colored pixels at the edge. What TV Paint does, though, is it has this. If I set it, let's say 2, then they're gone. It spreads out the color so that you don't see the edge, the uncolored places anymore. It could actually work even with 1. Yep, it does. And as you might notice, it also has this neat little thing here called Gap Closer. What it does is pretty much what the name suggests. If I have hand-drawn animation, it might happen that I have a gap somewhere. So if my line art has a gap, then I tell it, fill it in, and I have a gap closer. Then it calculates how to close it. Now, if the bigger the gap, the bigger this number is to be. And it will have a very weird, you can kind of see it like a bulge where it closes. But it does its job, and fairly well, especially if your only issue is you're drawing hair and there's a tiny spot where you didn't close it. You don't need to close it anymore. You can just fill it in with this. That's one option, one tool. A different tool is under stroke. If you go to fill stroke, you have this. Now usually, when you start the program the first time, it does this. Make a filled stroke. But it has this really neat option called Fill Inside. Fill Inside uses the same options as the Paint Bucket. So if I know Expand 1 is all I need to get this perfectly filled in. Now if I do this, nothing happens. But if I do this around a closed shape, it works like a Paint Bucket. Which I'm saying on purpose, because of course the first thought is, if I have Paint Bucket, why do I use this? But let's say I have multiple shapes. What's the issue? That's the issue. If I have multiple shapes and I need them all colored in with the same color anyway, I can simply do this. This is, by the way, what happens with closed gap when there's no closed gaps. So turn that off. And they're filled in. And it was 1 click instead of 5. Super easy. Very neat. Now, of course, all what I did is working on the layer I'm working with. So if I'm filling this in and I think no, that line art doesn't work. Too bad. It's literally on the line art. But there's another cool thingy. So let's say I'm making a new layer just for my colors. Then of course the issue is I'm filling in it and it's like, bruh, there's no line art. I can tell it under source. Look at the line art underneath me. And then it works. And I can even overdo the expanding if I want, like 6. Really over top. Now I just move it underneath it and it's fine. Or of course I can put it underneath it from the beginning and choose above. Layer usually goes with fill in what I have right now. Display is, as the name suggests, I have just a ball on the screen, I can fill it in. It recognizes all these 3. Very useful, very great. So this is when you just have the standard version. These are the ways to color. Now, if you actually are the lucky person that gets his hand, well, lucky, maybe rich, that gets its hand on the professional version, there's a third way. Because you have a color and texture layer. Color and texture layer instantly has sources. You can choose as many sources as you like. Usually it has one activated, being the last active layer you chose when you created this layer, the color layer. And what it does is a really neat thing, because it allows you to color animations without having to do frame by frame by frame by frame, which is massive. It's amazing when it works. It's a little bit moody. So as you can see here, a lot of the usual options are deactivated, except for stroke. The same here. You can still erase, and you have something called the speed fill brush. What the speed fill brush does is the neat thing. So my animation is simply a ball going up and down. Now if I click once, it will fill in my ball like a paint bucket, and it doesn't on the others, because as you can see, the red dot is outside the line art, so it's like pfft, not my issue. But if I, for example, do this, then it actually calculates where the line is, and as long as the ball is inside the line, it fills it in. So I'm missing a little bit here, if I'm adding it, and it's done. And the best part is you can actually, wait a second, where was it? You can hide it. This is not what will be on the final render. This is just for you, and you can hide it, and it's a perfectly colored, yeah, animation. And I did essentially two. I did one stroke for it. And this is the brilliance behind it, because if you, for example, have characters with clothing and hair, as long as you make everything in a separate layer, you can color the whole thing with 3, 4, 5 strokes, and your animation is done, and you didn't have to do 500 frames by hand. It's absolutely amazing. The only problem this one has is, I'm trying to see if I can do that right now. 1 second, I need to figure out. There. If the line is too long, it might go over top. So with action scenes where the character is like flying across the screen in every direction, not the best tool. If you have like a scene where the character doesn't move much, like a close-up of the face, small dot, and you get it, you have it colored for the entire scene, and the only thing you maybe have to add is like eyes darting or the mouth going up and open and closed. It's absolutely a brilliant tool, and it's amazing, and I'm really upset that the essential version doesn't have it, but that's how it is. And of course, just like with making a separate layer in itself, it's perfectly it's not dependent on the color on the line art, so you don't have to worry about it being on the same layer. And that is essentially how you can color in TV Paint, and it's amazing, especially in comparison to the previous versions, which were a really big pain. So yeah, get to coloring, because it's never been easier, literally.